The Godfather.
This that. This that. This that jumpin', yeah. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around smoking my trees. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around smoking my trees. I be ballin' in music like Kobe. I'm the greatest to ever do it, they don't know it. Straight from the streets where the shots came blowin'. I came from the bottom where they hate to see you blow. Mama always told me I'ma shine so I glow. I came from the block where I stood 10 toes. Came a long way, now I'm on the top floor.
Welcome to Turtle's Take. It's Friday night's hottest show. Me, Turtle, and my co-host Tarbill.
What's up, brother? How we doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Got a lot of news here breaking over the last few days in the Chicago sports world, so we got a heck of a show lined up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, it's been a wild 48 hours around here.
Absolutely. You want to go ahead and tell our guests what we got lined up for them tonight, Vince?
Absolutely. So we got former Chicago Bear offensive lineman Steve Edwards, and we have Chicago legendary sports reporter David Schuster.
We got both of those guys joining us. Steve, we're going to touch on some Bears, obviously, and we got to talk with David about how crazy the Bulls have been over the last 48 hours.
I can't wait to talk Bulls.
I'm sure. I know you were hot on those trades all day.
Oh, man, I just couldn't get enough of it. You know, it's just so rare, you know, and I hate to compare it to this, but the only thing I compare it to is the day that the news broke the Bears traded for Jay Cutler. Because at the time, everybody thought, oh, my God, Jay Cutler. But now it's just, you know, or, you know what, even better, let me correct myself. Khalil Mack. When the Bears traded for Khalil Mack, that's what yesterday was like.
Fair, yeah.
You know, you heard that there was going to be trades. We've talked about it on this show with many guests, and between ourselves, we thought maybe it's Lonzo Ball, maybe it's a role player, maybe they are only our sellers because we're setting up for next year. But to hear that, and early in the deadline yesterday, to hear that not only did they make a move, but they made a move for probably the best player that got moved yesterday, and maybe a top 5 center in the league. That's just not something we're used to as Chicago fans.
No, definitely not, especially over the last few years. I mean, man, the chemistry that AK and Billy Donovan have and the execution that we got there yesterday was tremendous. I'm very happy with the way that things played out yesterday, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the Bears have been hot at it, and other NFL moves too. The 2 big trades today by Miami and receivers not wanting to go to Baltimore, although I just heard a few minutes ago it sounds like Sammy Watkins went to Baltimore, so that's a little bit of breaking news that he wound up signing there. But, you know, they had a couple receivers turn them down and take less money to go elsewhere. So, you know, maybe that's something. Maybe guys don't want to play with Lamar. I'm not sure what happened there, but it sounds like they got themselves one.
Yeah, I think maybe there's some chemistry issues there with Lamar and the receivers. As far as Sammy signing, it's a solid signing. They got him for a year, so we'll see what they can do with a good target. They did have to go get somebody. I mean, they lack depth in the receiver position over there.
Yeah, I thought it was a very natural fit. Would have been like a Will Fuller or somebody like that. You know, one of the top, you know, Kenny Golladay, one of the top receivers. Right. But, you know, the report came out that Smith-Schuster and T.Y. Hilton both took less money than Baltimore offered to stay with the teams they were at. So that's something to monitor going forward.
It makes you wonder what the hesitation is in the destination.
Well, you know, when Lamar doesn't put up big passing numbers, who wants to go there as a receiver and risk having just a mediocre season, especially right now when everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of guys are on 1 year cap friendly deals because the cap was stayed the same this year, went down a little bit, and they're talking about it skyrocketing the next 2 years. So you have a good year this year, you take a little less money, and let's be honest, we're talking less money. They're still making more than most of us are ever going to make in our lives. They're still making it for that 1 year, but they're going to have a big year, a career year. They cash in when guys are getting paid double what they normally get paid. So
yeah, it's going to be a prove it year for a lot of guys in the NFL this year for sure. So
yeah, and I think it's going to be prove it year for a lot of sports. You could only take from the owners so much, and with no fans, a lot of the NBA last year played at the bubble, so you didn't even have the home games or the advertising or stuff like that. I mean, the owners lose out on money. I get it. A lot of people like to scream, well, the owners, they shouldn't care. They're billionaires. Well, yeah, but I mean, you still want to make a profit. If you're losing money, then, and with COVID, with everything that closed down, you've got, team owners that not only are they losing money from this, but they're losing money from their regular businesses too that fund these teams.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, I do agree with you. But at the same time, I think the owners have enough that they have enough money to spread around, I should say. And don't get me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely they do. Yeah, you're right.
Obviously, from a business perspective, you always want to make a profit. But at the end of the day, too, is it worth it to keep your players happy? And, you got to have that balance. So
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so a lot of cool things. The Tampa Bay Bucks. They re-signed Leonard Fournette today. So there's just been a lot of stuff going on in the last 24 to 48 hours, and everybody's still. Every time I think this Andy Dalton thing has calmed down, it erupts again. They have.
Yeah.
What was it? The tweet the other day, QB1, and everybody lost their mind about it. I heard Greeny talking about it, and he was judging and saying, "Oh my God, how could you do that?" I mean, it's just a social media department. They don't. It's not like Matt Nagy was on Twitter and was like, "Oh, here's my depth chart. That's QB1."
Right. The social media team was definitely taking a lot of heat over that post. And then I saw some pictures were posted of him like sparring in some boxing gloves.
I saw that.
I thought that was a little silly, but at the end of the day, he's, as they've publicly said, he's the QB1, whether we like it or not, as of now. So they're gonna promote him as such.
Yeah, I mean, the social media, they're just doing their job. They're getting the new acquisition, they're getting him out there, the new quarterback, they're getting his, him sparring and him being around Chicago and him at Hallis Hall, and it's like, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. Like I said, it's not Matt Nagy or Ryan Pace out there like, hey, let's put this on there, let's put that on there.
Well, the word collaboration wasn't used in the post, so it definitely wasn't Matt Nagy or Ryan Pace.
Yeah, if it was Ryan Pace, it would have started with collaboration.
So we got our guy Fat Mike here in the chat saying Andy Dalton is the perfect quarterback to fail. That's good. I hope they suck and they get a high pick. Fire Nagy and Pace after the season.
I would tell you, this absolutely grinds my gears. It absolutely grinds my gears when supposed fans of teams are like, you know what? I hope they suck this year. You know what I hope? I hope they surprise everybody and they go 12-5 or 12-4, depending if it's 16 or 17. Win 12 games, win 13 games. They surprise everybody, and the defense gets back to what it was, and they start dominating again. I don't ever hope that the team loses just so we get a high draft pick. And why would you hope they have a high draft pick anyways? What has Ryan Pace done that makes you think that he's going to do anything right with a first-round pick anyways?
I do understand what you're saying. I get the logic from both sides. It's one of those where going 8-8 gets you nowhere. You don't want to be that middle of the pack team. You want to see some progress. So if you have a little bit better record than that, it's a justifiable season. But if you win 6 games, that's doing nothing to help improve this franchise going forward either. So
yeah, I mean, you know what? Maybe if the Bears have a high draft pick, they could trade it for like a couple 4th-round picks because they don't have a 4th, and Ryan Pace seems to really be able to nail them 4th-round picks. I think Adrian Amos was a 4th-round pick. think Eddie Jackson was either a 3rd or 4th round pick. Maybe we can just bypass the first round because he doesn't seem to do very well in the first round anyways.
That is actually a spot on claim with Pace. He's not drafted anyone in the first round that's been decent, and it's so odd that he's had success in these later rounds and hasn't been able to put it together in the first round where that pick matters the most. I mean, moving up a spot to draft Mitchell Trubisky was arguably and will arguably be one of the dumbest draft day decisions of this era. So it'll be interesting to see what he does do with the pick at 20 and what he does with future first round picks. Our guy Angelo did say in the chat that he thinks Pace and Nagy will be here for 3 more years.
I think they'll be here more than that. I don't think that McCaskey, I don't think that Ted Phillips, I don't think anybody's going anywhere. I don't think that they have any interest in replacing Ryan Pace. Everything you hear from the people who, know what's going on and from people who talk to people who matter at Hallis Hall, they've said they've got no indication that they would like to get rid of Ryan Pace at all. He could have 8-8, 7-9, and he's still going to be here. They don't want to replace him. They don't think there's anything wrong with what he's doing. And unfortunately, the Trubisky fail is so on level because not only was Trubisky that bad, now not here anymore, but the 2 guys that you passed on, that you had to trade up to not get stuck with, both seem like they're generational talents. Mahomes for sure, and Watson is, he's not Mahomes, but he's damn good. And I take him every day of the week and twice on Sundays compared to what the Bears been trotting out there. So unfortunately, we get to see that all the time. And, it is what it is. The Bears are who they are. They're exactly who they've always been. Ted Phillips isn't going anywhere. He's a money guy. They trust him to count the money and make sure that everybody's putting the money back in the safe at the end of the night. And he's going to do that every night. Ryan Pace is going to run football. And no wonder they're not going to replace Ryan Pace. If they replace Ryan Pace, you now have to go get not only a GM, but a president of football operations. They don't have that. Everything runs through Ryan Pace. And now their favorite word, collaboration, runs through Matt Nagy as well.
Right.
Exactly, Fat Mike. They are who we thought they were.
Yeah. Honestly, I touched on it a couple times. I think that it all needs to start from the top. I think they need to move on from Ted Phillips and restructure down. But realistically, you're right. They've shown no indication of wanting to make that happen. They said at the end of the year presser that they want to see progress next season. Well, what do you define progress as? Because
right, and they're going to decide what progress is. There's no benchmark that says, well, if you hit this level, you've progressed and now you get to stay. And they told you everything you need to know in that press conference when they asked Ryan Pace flat out, how long is your contract left? And he said, well, we're not going to get into that. Well, it's public knowledge it was supposed to be 1 year. So if it's not only 1 year, have they already given him an extension? Have they just not told anybody that, well, we actually gave him a 3-year extension already, so he's got 4 years left?
That's a very Bears move. It's definitely something that I could see them doing. That's one thing that's always irritated me with the management structure of the Bears is they're totally not the opposite of transparent. I mean, they won't even give you a little bit of something that's unrelated to the game of football. You're not giving away any trade secrets by saying we extended our general manager or we extended our coach. Who cares? Why is that such a big secret? Why is there so much smoke and mirrors in this organization?
Because they all think they're the smartest guy in the room. That's why we got stuck with Trubisky in the first place, because Ryan Pace felt he knew better than everybody else. Well, everybody was running to look at Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. He said early on, I've got my guy. I've got Mitchell Trubisky. I'm going to draft him. I'm going to be smarter than everybody else. And it blew up in his face. But at the end of the day, what did it cost him? Okay, so the Bears have been bad the last few years. He still got paid. He didn't lose any money. He didn't lose anything. He still is running around like he's the best GM in football. But you see a GM like Miami has, and what they did today, and we'll talk about that more later, but there's moves out there to be made if you're creative enough to do them and smart enough to make those moves.
Yes, and that's where we focus so much on being secretive and trying to be smarter than, every other team in football. It just ends up making the Bears look like they haven't done their homework. They haven't done their due diligence. I mean, you didn't even look at Deshaun Watson. You didn't even show interest in Patrick Mahomes. Don't get me wrong, Mitch Trubisky was the number one quarterback that year on a lot of people's draft boards. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, but you got to do your due diligence and at least look at. There's no reason they didn't look at the top 5 guys in that draft.
The thing is, when you go to Patrick Mahomes' pro day and you see him perform and then never follow up, and you never go to Deshaun Watson's pro day, even when your head coach at the time, John Fox, is telling you that's the guy that he wants, that's the guy who he thinks is the best for the team, you completely ignore that and you decide to be all in on Mitchell Trubisky. You give every other team in the league a pass. No one has to answer for that except for you. Everyone else could be like, well, yeah, we might on our board, but you know what? We definitely were going to go Mahomes. We definitely were going to go Watson. They could all say that now. Look at our guy, Angelo, Mitch for MVP. No, that's MVP. The Nickelodeon valuable player.
Yeah, and there's so many Mitch truthers out there still that are just – I don't get me wrong. I wish nothing but the best for him, but I think we've seen the best quarterback.
I don't wish him the best at all. I don't wish him the best at all. I hope he goes to Buffalo. He never sees the field. And I hope, you know what? Actually, I changed it. I hope they does see the field. I hope Buffalo people out or gets blown out. I don't really care if they win. I just don't want to see anybody hurt, so not for an injury. But I hope they either blow people out or they're being blown out. They put Mitch in, and he's absolutely garbage. Because I'm so tired of all these people talking about, well, Mitch didn't get good enough coaching and Mitch didn't get a fair enough shot and all this stuff about Mitch and Mitch this, Mitch that. Talk about, oh, he makes these deep throws, everything. I don't know. I hope he falls on his face and he's out of the league in 3 years.
We got our guy Tyler saying Mitch might be better than the Red Rocket. I think he's referring to Andy Dalton, obviously. There, I think if
do you
Andy
see
Dalton,
what Fat Mike has started? Do you see what Fat Mike has started? I love Fat Mike. That's our boy. Do you see what he started? It's the Red Rifle. It's the Red Rifle. Everybody, leave the man alone. He hasn't even thrown a pass yet.
I've calmed down a little bit since we talked last week. I think you do have to give the man a chance. He may be able to do just enough to manage the game. If he has a good run game, he can be successful in the pass. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it is what it is. People are going to be upset. People are going to make their mind up, and the only way it's going to change is he goes out there and he makes plays. Hopefully they get him some guys to make plays that he can make the plays with, and like I said, hopefully they surprise us and they win 12 games.
Yeah, realistically, that would be the best case scenario, but I don't have high hopes. I think you've got a little bit more faith in Nagy as a coach than I do, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens here the first few weeks.
Yeah, I just don't think he's been given a fair enough chance. If I bring you in because what you do better than anybody that was available was you work with quarterbacks and you can call offense, which obviously is dictated by the quarterback play, and then I give you a lame duck quarterback that is incapable of running a pro offense, how are you supposed to look good? And I'm not saying that it was all Mitch. We're going to find out. We're going to find, because they're going to get a quarterback, whether it's Dalton this year and somebody next year, whether they make some move and they get a quarterback this year. We're going to find out. They're going to get a quarterback, and Matt Nagy, his feet are then going to be put to the fire, and he's going to have to show that he can take a quarterback that he selects and make him better and make him progress and make him run the offense and run the offense at a high level. And if he can't, then he'll be out of here too. And the revolving door will continue in Chicago.
That it will. Our guy Angelo here saying give Nagy 2 years with a quarterback he can actually draft and then evaluate him. Pace has shown
Absolutely.
he's a bust.
Absolutely.
I do understand the logic, but at the end of the day, you have to coach to your players' strengths, and that's not something we've seen Matt Nagy do. That's what concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who all their claims about the Bears offense are absolutely right. There's not a lot for me to hang my hat on to say that Matt Nagy's a good coach. It's really just it might just be the Bear fan in me hoping that that's what it is, and all of a sudden we're going to see a completely different offense with Allen Robinson back and Mooney taking the next steps, and hopefully I never see Anthony Miller again, or Tariq Cohen in you. And I just, Fat Mike says it's the meathead in me. I don't think it's a meathead thing. I think it's just there is a possibility. Like, teams surprise people all the time, and they have years that nobody saw coming. Why can't it be the Bears? Why can't this be the year that they just are better than we thought they were going to be? You look at everything, and other teams have done it in other sports and different things, and they just surprise you and they play way better than you think it's been.
That's our guy Mike saying, because it's been 35 years. It has been a long time since we've had a really elite level Bears squad. So it's hard to be optimistic sometimes. It really is, but you're a little bit more the glass half full than I am in this case.
I definitely am. And, I'm hoping to get a little backup here, and it could backfire. He might agree with you guys and tell me that, you know what, I don't know what I'm talking about, and the Bears are going to barely win a game this year, but we're going to bring on our guy here, our first guest of the night, Big Steve Edwards, former offensive lineman from the Chicago Bears.
What's going on, fellas?
How's it going? How you doing,
up,
Steve?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just chilling out on this Friday night, man. Sorry, I was running a little behind schedule, but
oh, no problem. No worries at all, man. We appreciate you jumping on with us.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all, man.
Yeah, so Steve, the popular thing right now is everybody talking about Andy Dalton and where the Bears are headed. But we'd love to hear your story before you get into it. Let me just ask you, what do you think of Andy Dalton? What do you think of the direction the Bears are headed right now?
Let's start off with a laugh, huh? I mean, let's be honest. This is not where we want to be as an organization with Andy Dalton. I think the initial reaction has not been good because we know what we want around here. We need a quarterback. We need a franchise quarterback, and it's just been especially in my 4 years, we haven't had anything solid at that position. You point at Rex Grossman's of the world, Kyle Orton's, and those are your solid quarterbacks. You go back to Jim McMahon, the '85 Bears, and and Jim McMahon he was part of a legendary team, but he was supported by a great team. So we never had that guy ever in the franchise history. So we're clamoring for somebody like that. And we had Color, who had the talent, but just didn't have the mental. He didn't have that want to. He didn't want to be great. Right. You know what I mean? He had all the talent in the world. But here we are. We talk about we had opportunities. I'm sure we can just hammer that with until the cows come home with Deshaun Watson and McCombs, and that opportunity missed. You get Mitch Trubisky. Now you ship Mitch Trubisky up out of here. You don't want him anymore. Well, like, okay, bet. What are we gonna do? Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. We knew we couldn't get that Deshaun Watson deal. I mean, it was too much. You would have to give up, and we don't have the capital to give up. Russell Wilson, it was in the ballpark. It was actually, we would have to get up basically everything, but we wanted that. I think everybody in the city was like, we didn't care. We want that. Right. We don't care what the future is going to look like. We got a quarterback finally, and that's something people saying it could happen. But dust settles, and we sign Andy Dalton, and here we are. And I think we was just like, what again? So you telling us, we got like a Nick Foles type of guy. You know what I mean? He's like Nick Foles. He's a little bit a better upgrade than Glennon. Mike Glennon. It's like these type of quarterbacks. Now I think some people are supporting like Andy Dalton is not that bad of a quarterback. He's not, but I think some people are looking at it and it's like, okay, calm down. This is what it is. And I've kind of gotten to that. I'm like, okay, let's see what he does good. He had some great times in Cincinnati, but that's not going to cut it, man. But we're going to have to live with it. We'll have to see what they're going to do in the draft. That's my biggest thing is what they're going to do in the draft. Can we get a quarterback in the draft? Are we going to move up? Can we get a Mac Jones? That's how you make me feel better about going into next year. Can we get that quarterback? And all these quarterbacks look good. And guess what? We're probably not. We're probably not going to get in the position. You see all these teams willing and dealing, moving draft picks. And it's like we just are just a million steps behind on everybody else in the league as they make these moves. We're just sitting back, and Tampa, they're signing everybody back. How are they? Cap help.
They signed everyone back.
Yeah. So that was my rant. I just went on a huge rant. I'm sorry, but man,
no problem at all.
Yeah. So it's a mess right now, man, because you just kind of look at everything and people I'm around, they're always asking me, what do you think about the Bears? I just say it's a mess right now. We're just gonna have to see what happens at this point. I'm just like, we got to just take one step at a time. Let's see what they do in the draft. Nothing. Okay, well, it's just it's what, and then you get rid of Kyle Fuller. It's just I don't know. I
definitely understand that. Before we get into some questions, Steve, do you want to give us a little bit of a backstory, maybe for some of our younger viewers that weren't able to watch you when you were playing with the Bears? Give us a little bit of history about yourself.
Well, I can't. Chicago kid, South Side, born and raised. Went to Mar Carmel High School, the almighty Mar Carmel. And I'm going to eventually. I will talk about my college story, but that's a long story. I ended up basically came out of University of Central Florida, UCF. Went undrafted to the Philadelphia Eagles. Spent like 4 games on practice squad, and then the Bears came sign me to their 53-man roster. The next season, I end up starting all 16 games for the Bears at left guard. Next year, I started 8 games and pretty much made appearances in all the games in the substitute capacity until they gave me the starting role again. And then next year, I was a backup. So I spent 4 years with the Bears. I spent a season with the Giants, and I got hurt with the Ravens, but that was counted as a season. So, and then after that, I had an arena career, with Arizona Rattlers, Philadelphia Soul for a little second. And ultimately in 2013, I ended my career back home with the Chicago Rush.
Okay. That's a very, very dynamic career going definitely from team to team and then going into the arena league like that. It's a lot of adaptability. Our guy Fat Mike here in the chat's asking, you played both left and right guard with the Bears. How hard was that adjustment being in that fill the gap type role? Give us a feeling of how difficult that was, how hard it is.
It became second nature, man. I think I just accepted the role. I accepted being versatile. I was a tackle naturally, through high school, right, college, even when I entered the pros. But they saw me as a guy who can play guard, and I had to play guard on the fly. That next year that I end up starting after my rookie year, all into training camp, I was battling Aaron Gibson at the right tackle. Mark Colombo was hurt. It was me and Aaron Gibson battling. They had let Big Cat Williams go, and the move was to make Mark Colombo the guy, but his injury had not healed, and so it was me and Aaron Gibson. Aaron Gibson won. He had a little more experience than me. They wanted to go with the more experienced guy, but I pretty much showed out. I mean, I balled it, but they went with the experienced guy. Rex Tucker gets hurt. that last preseason game. You know, back in then, like they don't do like it now. Everybody sits out. I think they gave like the first team the last reps of the first series, and he got hurt on the first series. And I remember there was a couple guys who played guard that were in line to play, take that spot. So going into that first week, we're going against San Francisco. I'm on the training table getting tape for practice, thinking, okay, I'm the swing tackle, backup tackle. And Bob Wiley, our offensive line coach, came up to me and was like, "Hey, you're the starter left guard." And I'm like, "What?" I was just like, "Huh?" Like this, it's Monday. I never played guard in my life, and of course, at that time they had Brian Young, who, if anybody knows about the San Francisco 49ers back in the day, coming out of Notre Dame, was an absolute monster. And I was a big 49ers fan besides being a Bears fan. And I was like, what? I got to, that's all I could think. My first thought was like, I never played guard and I got to go against Brian Young. But I held my own and I made guard my thing, and it always helps playing against a legend like Olin Kreutz, man, who just brought me along, taught me the game. And I learned a lot more about the game on the inside because you have to know a little bit more of of what's going on with the blitz, blitz schemes, just tackles. You sometimes on the island, just like, okay, I'm on this end probably about 90% of the time. When you're at guard, there's so many combinations. You're working with the tackle, you're working with the center, you're pulling. So there's a lot more that I learned, and I always had the ability to pop back out to tackle when they needed me. So it just kind of became my thing, and I ran with it, and it didn't matter what side, right, left. And that's why I tell kids now, when I train them, like, hey, be comfortable coming out of your right hand and left hand stance. Just be comfortable doing it all on the offensive line. I even started trying to learn the center position, because I was really, at the end, like when Harry Hestead came in, he started like, can you snap the ball? So yeah, hey, I'm trying to stay on this team, man. Yeah, I'll snap this ball.
Right. Whatever it takes mentality, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We had a question from our chat. We had a question from our chat. Our guy Mike Schweiss, he wanted to know guy that just always gave you a hard time trying to block it. So who was the hardest guy to block for you?
Okay. I just answered this question yesterday. I just ran into a random guy. Funny, I was coming out of the bathroom. This guy was just like, he wasn't even paying attention, and I like almost ran into him. He's like, "Whoa!" And I said, "Whoa!" And he said, "Hey," he's like, "You play football?" I was like, "Yeah." When people, I go about life, I just kind of walk, and I'm a big guy, and people probably assume, but if you actually come up and ask me, I'm going to talk to you. Actually, I'm going to sit there and have a conversation. So this guy asked me, who was my heart. He just went through a plethora of questions at that point. So that's the one that comes up. So I always get credit, like in practice. I just go right to practice. The hardest guy I had to go against was Tommy Harris. I just always go right to that. But the actual opponent, I would go Sean Rogers with the Detroit Lions, and I never waver on that. And I went against a lot of people. And the reason for it is because, in the NFL, I always had a size advantage. I was 6'5", 340, in the inside playing guard. I had tackle type size with long arms. And I when I moved to guard, I felt like I was like overpowering people at times. I had that athleticism as a tackle, and I had the size of a guard with the height and the long arms of the tackle. It was the right combination, and I felt like at times in the run game I could overwhelm people. But Sean Rogers, he matched me in size, and he was a better athlete than me. So he would, had the athleticism, and he would just, man, he would give me so much problems. And I remember he's the only person that just really beat me down one game. Just did me in. Just beat me up. And I remember Olin Kreutz and giving Olin the credit. And I would, talking about playing next to a legend. He shoots you straight, like, get your shit together. you better get your butt in that film. You didn't think and he's like, he kicked your butt. Like, I was like, I took that personal. And then I remember I came back the next game that's like had everything on him. One thing I knew, the guy took plays off. So I was gonna get on his ass every play. But I got him the next game, but he came back then, so it was from that point on, it was a battle, So it's Sean Rogers, came out of Texas, if anybody remember that guy.
Oh, absolutely. That's those were both some tough guys you named there, especially with Harris there in practice. But you already mentioned Olin a couple times. I just wanted to touch on him a little bit more. Everybody says that he was vocal. I mean, what was it like playing besides a guy like that just had that much energy and was no frills, just really out there and wasn't afraid to speak his mind?
Not afraid to speak his mind on the field, off the field, out the building, out to dinner. He just, I was glad to call him my friend, but it was like you had to kind of know how to maneuver around Olin. You know what I mean? You got to know when not to take things personal, and he'll say something just out of this world, and you knew when to take his criticism and him trying to get you better. Unique individual, man, smart individual. He just commanded so much, man, but he brought it. You know what I mean? The guy had his house was like right outside of Hallis Hall's complex. Like, so when you leave the business, so Hallis Hall is like in this big corporate plaza as you go winding through all these Abbott and all these places, and then the back is Hallis Hall. So when you leave that little, corporate park, there's houses, and Olin had a house like right outside. Like, he did that on purpose so he could stay there late, get there, and he wouldn't have to drive. I'm just like, wow. I mean, that was he meant to do that so he could spend as much time as he wanted at the team facility. He'll be the first one to get there and the last one to leave. And guess what? I didn't have that long to drive. He put in the work. I mean, the guy was deadlifting. Hey, that didn't work for everybody, deadlifting on a Friday when you got a Sunday game, but that was what he needed. He wasn't always the biggest guy, but he knew he needed that extra oomph of a deadlift on a Friday to get himself right. So deadlift might not be your thing, but what is it that you need to do to make sure you had yourself right? Know what you need to be as good as you need to be come Sunday. And he did that consistently. And I can say, hey, I didn't do all that stuff. I look back at my career like, man, I should have did X, Y, and Z a little bit better. I see what Olin's talking about, and that's why he had the success. You know what I mean? That's why he's a Hall of Fame caliber player and a Bears legend. And he just commanded it, man. He walked the walk. He'll beat your butt. If you wanted to get, obviously some of these stories, man, I ain't gonna, the one with Fred Miller, but there was some other occasions where, I'm gonna keep those locked up as secret, man. But he had to check a couple cats. He had to check. Right. He checked some cats. He ain't had no problem doing that, But you respected him because he brought it, man, and he ran that building, man. Nobody. I mean, I remember one time we working out. Jerry Angelo comes walking through. He's like, "Hey, I need my I need my extension." I'm like, "What?" I'm like yelling at Jerry Angelo, like, I need one to, I was just like, I'm trying to get cut. I ain't trying to do nothing. He's like, "Hey, man, get my extension. You better pay me," because he's balling at that point. And guess what? He got paid. You know what I mean? So he was that type of guy, man. And everybody respected him. He had a little fear factor, but everybody respected Olin, man. And if you're listening to him now, as he's on other platforms, you hear the knowledge, man. That's the knowledge we heard all when we were playing, man.
We got another quick question here from the chat. What was Rex like? What was he like playing with him? Did you guys believe in him as a team? Our guy Fat Mike personally did not as a fan. Oh, what was your thoughts on Rex, man?
Well, hey, man, Rex came in with that talent he had in Florida to throw the ball. There was a couple occasions I think that injuries kind of, he had obviously the Super Bowl season. he was on pace early in that season on the MVP pace, and then all of a sudden things kind of slowed down for him as far as, you know, how good he was that year. But prior to that, it was times like Record's rookie year. He came in, I think he came in, finally got his opportunity because it was Cordell Stewart and Chris Chandler, and it was in the Kansas City game. We were in Arrowhead and we were struggling, and Cordell and I think I don't know who started that. I think Rex started that game off, and we were on fire, and then Rex got hurt. And then I think he broke his wrist or something, like fell wrong. And then, you know, the rails came off, and we, you know, playing in Arrowhead was another story. And then the following year, Rex comes back. He's balling for us. We had confidence, like, man, we got this guy behind us. He could throw this ball. We're in Minnesota. They run some kind of bootleg, and he takes off and runs with the ball. And I think it was his ACL. He tore his ACL, and those are the injuries that kind of derailed his progression at that point. Obviously, he came back to be a starter, but Rex had injuries early on, man. I know he had the height and all that, but he had that talent, man. He wasn't the most vocal leader either. You know what I mean? He wasn't a guy. He just was very silent, didn't really hang out with the guys afterwards. It was that one of those guys where he would, you'll see him in the facilities, and after that, you wouldn't see him. You'll see him at the games, you'll see him at practice, and you wouldn't see him. Maybe some other guys like Todd Johnson, maybe they were cool with him, but we wouldn't see much of Rex Grossman, man. And right now, he's retired. Okay. Do you even know where Rex Grossman is right now? That dude is...
No, he's very under the radar.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Yeah, the dude's in the witness protection program, so yeah, he wants to be like that. So, but nah, Rex was a good guy, man. As a quarterback, you like to, that guy who could be a leader, but I think, one thing, he takes a bad rap, man. Those injuries, I think, really could derail what he could have possibly been, it was 3 significant injuries. You talk about those, and then I forget the one that Cal Orton, I think it was in preseason, and Cal Orton had to start the season off for us. And then Rex came back against Atlanta that game, and he missed a portion of that season. So you're talking about 3 injuries early on in his career. Obviously he ended up having a good backup career, but, who knows? Take injuries away, who knows?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Steve, we want to say thank you again for joining us here. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to sit down with Vince and myself. It was great having you on. Lots of knowledge. We definitely appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back on in the future, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of Bears talk. It's going to be an intriguing season coming up. And hey, Vince, man, my boy Vince, I ain't seen him since the Chicago Rush days, man. What's going on, buddy? Glad to reach you out. You reached out to me, man. Absolutely, man. Vince,
we'd love to have you on again around draft time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hit me up, man. Anything, man. Anytime, guys.
All right, Steve.
Thank you so much,
man. We appreciate it. Take care.
All right.
Man, what a guest. So much knowledge,
great.
Especially that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, you hear him talk, and a lot of these guys, you get all you can think about is when they played and how great of a player they were and different things. But man, you just really get caught up in, the football IQ and the story from, looking back at a guy like Olin Kreutz and learning how to play by playing next to him and lining up next to him all the time, and you just so many things that you would think that would come to mind first from a player. And it's the IQ, it's the how to get better, how to, he talks about, okay, look, I got my ass handed to me by Sean Rogers, but you know what? I was in the room looking at film till I realized, he takes plays off and I can get him the next time. And then coming back and getting him the next time, especially some even the lines, you're playing him twice a year. It's just that pride in you, like, oh, I want to be better than the guy across from me. And I think today's athlete, and I don't mean to just blanketly offend anybody, but I just feel like today's athlete, and maybe today's generation more than just athletes, there's really, you lose that sense of, well, I just want to be better than the guy across from me just to say I'm better, just to know that inside, know that I'm better than the guy I line up against. And I think that's why, some people say it's soft. Some people say different things about today's NFL. I just think players are just worried about so many more things than just being better than the guy they're going against.
Oh, I definitely see that. I see both sides of that. I mean, obviously, as the game evolves and changes, players do evolve. But I think you're right. There isn't as much of a sense of I need to be my best self. I need to beat that guy across from me every down, every play. And it's as time goes on, as things change, we see players evolve. You see it a lot in other leagues, not so much football, but like the NBA with the way the defense is today and everything compared to the late 90s, early 2000s. But we can talk about that more a little bit later here. Real quick, guys, we're going to take a quick break and hear one quick word from our sponsor, John Darren, over at the Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Darren, licensed real estate broker with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group in Homer Glen. Are you looking to buy or sell? Have you been disappointed in the past? The Jonathan Darren team with Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group focuses on providing you with a concierge level of service during the process of buying or selling. We are a service-oriented team with a fresh and professional approach to selling real estate. Our goal is to combine knowledge, skills, and passion to exceed our clients' expectations, and most of all, we truly care. We are a knowledgeable real estate team focused on offering expertise and innovative solutions for our clients. The Jonathan Darren team has 5 full-service real estate brokers and a dedicated full-time marketer servicing all of Chicagoland. We will customize a detailed plan around your timeline for a sale, purchase, investment, estate, or other needs. Real estate transactions can be stressful, but don't need to be. Let us handle it for you. Visit our website, homesbyjdt.com, or call 708-308-1938 today. Expect better in real estate. Choose the Jonathan Darren team.
All right, guys, that was a quick word from our team over, our sponsor over at the Jonathan Darren team with the Coldwell Banker Real Estate Group. If you guys are looking for a home in the Chicagoland area, definitely reach out to them. So, Vince, we had a lot of takes there with Steve about the Bears. There's just been so much going on in the Chicago sports world here the last couple days. Obviously, yesterday with all the splash moves the Bulls were making and everything, there was a lot of excitement going on over the last 24 hours. So, you want to start getting into that a little bit? You want to introduce our next guest we got coming?
Man, I would love to. I've been waiting since I heard the trade announced. I've been waiting for this moment right here. I love Steve to death. Love him, known him a long time. I could not wait to get to this moment right here. I'm pleased to welcome David Schuster to our show.
Evening, guys. How you doing, Vince and Andrew?
What's up, David?
Doing well. How about yourself, David?
Doing great. It's a Friday night, man. Who can complain?
Nothing better.
Friday night talking Bulls. There's nothing better than that. I know I'm going to get hooked and I'm going to forget stuff. So before we do, I'm super excited. But before we do, I got to ask you, kind of shift gears real quick. Eloy. They announced Eloy's out 5 months. What do the Sox do to replace somebody who was supposed to be one of the centerpieces to this championship run that they were supposed to be making this year?
Well, the easy answer is they scramble, to be perfectly honest with you. And what they're going to initially do is they're going to put Andrew Vaughn out in left field. He played there apparently earlier today. I saw a tweet by Scott Merkin of MLB.com, and I'm sure you guys have talked to him. He said he caught a fly ball. So at least that's a good start, you know?
Yeah, starting in the right direction.
Yeah, but honestly, guys, I'm a little fearful. Obviously, that's not his position of choice. It's not his position from, any kind of history. And you all also fear, take a look when you put guys out in certain positions. I mean, even you go back to Kyle Schwarber, the first time he played left field, look what happened to him. He screwed himself up in that game. I think it was in Houston, if I remember correctly. And, he was out until the World Series. Now, maybe that's a good omen. Who knows? Maybe Eloy will come back a few days before the World Series and then be, magnificent in the postseason. But, he's not really a good defensive outfielder. It was a mistake for him to go for that ball in that situation, although he's showing his competitiveness. But it was a bigger mistake to even have him out there in the first place, specifically in a preseason game, and they suffer the consequences. And we'll see what happens. But Andrew Vaughn is going to get, at least for now, the lion's share. I wouldn't be surprised if the White Sox look outside the organization. There's not much to choose from, but I think they might look outside. Maybe Cespedes is that guy that they go for, but time will tell.
David, why do you think it is that they refuse to, the easy answer, and maybe it's because of Andrew Vaughn's bat, I don't know, but it seemed like the easiest answer was to say, okay, well, we're going to shift him into our DH. That's going to be his role. Why do you think they were so hesitant to do that and just forcibly keep sending him out to left field?
Well, honestly, it's the makeup of the roster. If you were going to have him be the DH, what are you going to do with Andrew Vaughn? Andrew Vaughn's just too good of a bat to go back down to the minors. He's a major league bat, and knock on wood, him playing left field will not stunt his growth at the plate. So, they have a bunch of DHs on their team, and ultimately, Andrew Vaughn will be the White Sox first baseman for probably many years to come. But for right now, they have the reigning MVP on their roster also in Jose Abreu. So it just broke the way it did. The ideal situation would have been to have Eloy Jimenez hopefully not get hurt, play left field more often than not, but get him out of the game in the seventh inning when they should have the lead and have a bunch of replacements or a defensive replacement there. But unfortunately, this is what happened, and they're just going to have to deal with it going forward.
Very unfortunate for something like that to happen in spring training game. I mean, you touched on it a little bit. He shouldn't have even been going for that ball. And you talk about 5-6 month injury, that could really be detrimental going, especially early on here for the Sox. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, honestly, guys, they say 5 to 6 months. I'm not counting on him at all this year. That's a pretty serious injury. When you tear a tendon in your chest, it doesn't heal. It's not just a little shaving cut. That's a pretty major thing. He's going to have surgery. I think he's going to have a second opinion, but he'll have the surgery. And I'm not counting on him at all, to be honest with you. And knock on wood, they stay away. Listen, injuries is the big thing to always overcome for any team that's going for a championship in any sport. It's since the day of dawn, that's what, usually knocks out teams going for championships.
Absolutely. So there's been a lot of news. Shifting gears a little bit, David, there's been a lot of news, obviously, with the trade deadline and the Bulls. What do you make of the trades that the Bulls made here at the deadline? Are you happy with the moves they made?
Well, I'm not an investor in the team, so I don't have any financial stake. So let's start right there. But yeah, as a fan, 2 thumbs up, guys. I mean, they got an all-star center who I still think his best years are still in front of him. When you have a chance to do that, man, you jump on it. Their roster definitely got better. Now, will it get better right off the bat? I don't know, to be honest with you, because they have 9 of their next 10 games on the road. That's pretty daunting. If they had stayed the way they were, I'd say they probably lose 8 or 9 of those road games, honestly, because the Bulls were going backwards. I think Arturas Karnisovas and maybe even more so Billy Donovan took a look at what was really going on, not only on the court, but in the locker room. You could see the sort of the mental defeating attitude that was starting to pervade the roster. And you got to remember this, the Bulls had not beaten a team with a winning record in 2 months. That's a long time, guys. And, they only had games against teams that had 500 or better records, 4 games so far this season. And 2 of them were against, 2 of them were against, one of them was against Indiana. 2 of them were against Dallas, which were barely over 500 at that time. They hadn't beaten a good team all season. So, the brass and more so Billy Donovan knew this team just wasn't good enough. They had to shake it up. And that's exactly what they did. 5 players off their roster. None of them really consequential. They got rid of both juniors, Otto Porter Jr. and Wendell Carter Jr. No real big deal. Wendell Carter Jr., as much as I like him personally, not good enough. Just not good enough for an NBA center. Otto Porter Jr. was just a thief stealing money from the Bulls and every team he's played for previous. Daniel Gafford, a good defensive player, but very limited. Chandler Hutchinson, I don't know what the deal is with him. All of a sudden now he's healthy enough to play. So who knows? There might have been a soap opera story going on with him. And I'm trying to think who the last player even was. Lou Cornett. That's why I forgot him, because he's a forgettable player.
Oh, yeah.
So they really gave up nothing, guys. But most important, really what they gave up was 2 first-round picks. But hopefully they'll be good enough that they can overcome that. They should have some money. They need a point guard going forward. But the most importantly, they got an all-star center. And Vucevic is really good. I mean, if you've seen him in person yourself, you know that to be true. 25 and 12 points and rebounds. He led Orlando in just about every category that's imaginable. It was a really, really good day for the Bulls yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
David, we had a question through the chat from our guy Alan. He wanted to know, do you touch on a little bit with the point guard? Do you think that Jeff Teague might be a guy the Bulls target after he's cut?
Well, I mean, I suppose they could take a look at him. I really don't think the Bulls are going to take care of their point guard situation until probably next year. The fact that they didn't do anything here at the deadline, they got 3 players who are quote-unquote point guards on their roster still. Satoransky is more than serviceable, although I consider him really a backup player. Kobe White, from the moment I've seen him, he's not a point guard, and I'm a real traditionalist when it comes to a point guard. I think you have to, make everybody else on the court better, including yourself. I mean, you can score. That's what point guards now do in the NBA. But your first and foremost, at least in my estimation, is to make everybody better around you. And I don't think he really does that. Ryan Arcidiacono, he's a serviceable player also, but he's not the answer in the long run. Will they try and work something out for Alonzo Ball in the offseason? That's possible. Kyle Lowry is a really long shot. Or maybe they look, I don't know. They look elsewhere. But right now, that's the biggest need going forward. They need a point guard.
Do you think Lauri Markkanen is gone after this season?
I think, honestly, the political answer to that is, let's see what he does for the next 29 games. I mean, he's obviously not only playing for his spot on the Bulls, but he's playing for a contract from somebody else. It's a 50-50 answer to that question. I'm going to say probably he will be gone, because if they need the money to go and sign somebody like Alonzo Ball or somebody else, that's going to be the money that maybe they don't have to spend, on Lauri Markkanen. So 50-50, but I think, yes, ultimately he might not be here.
Okay.
We heard some word come through yesterday. You've talked about Lonzo Ball here. It sounded like they were really, really interested in Lonzo. I heard that there was word that they were trying to package Laurie and Gary Temple and a draft pick for him, and they had traded the first round pick in the other trade. If it's not Lonzo, and this league is 3 stars, who's that next piece? You've got Zach, and you've got Vucevic, and Patrick Williams looks like a piece you can build around. Who's that next piece that realistically Bulls fans can watch for?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Patrick Williams. He I think will be the third leg of that tripod going forward. Although, honestly, lately I've been disappointed. Yeah, I know he's the second youngest player in the NBA. I get all that. He's only 19 years old. But he's shown that he's capable of performing at this level. He's just got to be more aggressive. And unfortunately, his background is that he's not. I mean, in his only year in college, and let's remember, he only played, 1 year in college at Florida State. He was the youngest player on that roster, and he deferred to the older players there. And I think that's what he's really doing here in the NBA as well. But somebody's got to get a hold of him and say, listen, young man, you are a major part of this team and this franchise going forward. You are the present and the future. So, Billy Donovan's got his work cut out to get this guy to be aggressive. But let's face it, we've seen what he can do. And his ceiling is way, way in front, up above. And hopefully he'll start doing that. They got to get another point guard. And I do have faith in Karnišović that maybe, just maybe, he might find some draft. Listen, they got this kid coming over from Europe also. I don't know if he's going to be here on the roster next year. He's a 6'11" center that would probably be the backup to Vucevic. Although, they picked up Mike Tice, or not Tice, Daniel Tice. I'm saying Mike Tice. Daniel Tice from Boston yesterday. He's not really that big, as far as being tall. He's only 6'8", but he's like 6'8" wide as well. And he'll be a good defensive backup center that will bring toughness to the Bulls roster. And the Bulls picked up some other players yesterday too. They got Troy Brown. They picked him up in the three-way trade with Washington. He's only 21 years old, guys. When he came out of college, there was a lot of promise for him, but he sort of languished on Washington's bench. But he's a good defensive player. He can handle the ball because he was a point guard in high school. So I like him. And Javonte Green, they also got picked up from Boston along with Tice. And, he's a guy who also languished on the bench there. I think he's going to be fighting Denzel Valentine for minutes going forward. So not only was Vucevic the biggest of the big prizes yesterday, but they got some other players who I think will help as well.
Our guy Mike's asking here in the chat, is it a mistake that they kept Thad Young? Do you think it was a mistake for Billy Donovan to keep him around?
No, I don't. And hi, Mike. I can't see you, but I know you're there somewhere. Anyway, no, I don't. I think they're really going to try and make the playoffs. I think that is a goal of this franchise, not only for the franchise itself, but for a lot of the players that are still on this team. Zach LaVine has never played in the postseason. I think they really want to get him that experience, even if it's one game, which it might be, just one game in the play-in, if you will. But no, Thad Young will help them, and then he's potentially still under contract for next season as well, unless they want to use his money, to try and garner something else. So no, I don't think it was a mistake at all to keep him.
Okay, and
David, where do you see Aminu slotting in this team? Is he just a throw-in piece, or is he part of the future?
Well, he's a tough-minded player also who has seen postseason action, and that's invaluable for a team that really doesn't have that many guys on the roster who have seen postseason action. The two guys from Boston are really the two players who have seen playoff action previously. I think basically he is a throw-in player. He's a 6'8". He's a tough player. Don't get me wrong. There's not that many minutes at the power forward position, and that's what his position is. So for right now, he's rounding out the roster. I don't see him getting that many minutes on the court, but let's just wait and see.
David, we saw we're talking they're going forward and the tough schedule they have. A lot of people like to talk about how they're just a few games fourth. Where do you, at the end of the year, where do you see this team winding up? Is it a play-in game? They're fighting for the playoffs. Are they, a fourth or fifth seed that actually gets in and doesn't have to worry about that?
No, I think they're going to be a play-in team. And honestly, the story that I'm sort of painting right now, it's a long ways off, is they probably are the number 10 team. I think the roster got better, guys. But again, 9 of the next 10 games are on the road. And there's going to be very little practice time over these next 3 weeks for these guys to get adjusted to each other. That's a major handicap when you all of a sudden get 5 new players thrown on your roster to try and work themselves in to the chemistry in the mix here. So 9 of 10 on the road, no practice time. That's going to really hurt them. Eventually, I think this, like I said, I think this roster will be better in the long run by far, but it's a major hurdle to overcome over these next 3 weeks. So, yeah, I do see them maybe sneaking in as the number 10 team, and I could see them playing the New York Knicks against Tom Thibodeau in that one play-in game at Madison Square Garden. That actually would be a pretty interesting game.
Right.
I don't know if I'd really want to see that, but, yeah, it would be an interesting game.
See Derrick Rose and that squad play Chicago for that play-in game. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, Taj, too.
That's right.
Our guy
So,
Mike
David,
wants
if
to know,
you got one. No, go ahead, Tarbill.
our guy Mike here wants to know who you have for the tournament, Dave.
You're talking about the NCAA, of course.
Sorry, for the NCAA tournament.
You know what? Gonzaga hasn't lost this season. I don't see them losing. I mean, Illinois flopped out, obviously. I hope Loyola makes it to the Final Four. I don't see them winning the whole thing, although maybe Sister Jean has a couple more rabbit's feet up her alley. But Gonzaga's been undefeated all season, and it's a real rarity for somebody to go through a season undefeated. I think Indiana was the last team to do it. So yeah, I got Gonzaga still winning it.
Okay. Naturally, I'm gonna say I would like to see Loyola win it. Just being a homer, rooting for that last Illinois team now that the Illini are out of it. But I think you're right.
I'm all in on Houston.
Illinois would have had to have defeated Houston to get to the Final Four. Now, obviously, Loyola will probably at some point have to face them, I guess, to get to the Final Four.
That could definitely be an interesting matchup. Well, like you touched on Sister Jean there a little bit. That's just incredible for her to be able to be in attendance there and see her team win, even if it was against the Illini. So I'm glad they made that work for her, and I'm excited to see what Loyola does here.
I think it's pretty incredible that she's still on Earth at 101 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
I know I'm not going to make it that far.
Let alone out there courtside cheering her team on in this situation. So yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, David, we appreciate you coming on with us. We always love having you. You got great takes on so many different sports. I'm sure we'll have you on again, and can't wait to have you back.
Happy to help you guys. Anytime you need me, I'm there for you. Anytime.
Thanks, David. We appreciate it.
David.
Good night. Take care.
Have a great weekend, guys.
You as well. Bye-bye.
You too. Man,
Wow.
a lot of great info there. Lot to digest there. I guess I get too excited after the trade. Was thinking, man, we got a 4 or 5 seed team, and maybe we even run up there and give these top 3 teams in the East some trouble. And my guy David comes on here and talks about a top 10 team. So I don't know. Maybe we'll, if nothing else, I think they're definitely building in the right direction.
They are definitely building in the right direction, but I do have to agree. I don't think that it's going to be, as glamorous as everyone thinks it will be right away. Obviously, it's going to take some time to build that chemistry. That's natural. And again, David touched on just this set of away games here down the stretch. It's going to be tough, but the chemistry will get there. Are we going to instantly be up in the top of playoff contention? No, but I could see that play-in game situation happening, and I think it'd be a very interesting game to see Derrick Rose playing the current Bulls, to see obviously Thibs there as well. What a matchup that would be. So who knows?
We'll see. Bulls fans are going to see Derrick Rose kick the Bulls out of the playoffs again. Just in a different jersey this time.
Oh, I wasn't a fan of the Bulls moving on from Rose, but we don't need to go back that far. I mean,
no, you're right.
Let bygones be bygones at that point.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And on that note, let's take a second here. We're going to take a quick break and give you a word from our sponsor from Nick and Ivy Brewing.
Hello, this is Paul from Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. We are located at 1026 South State Street in historic downtown Lockport, Illinois. We are very excited to be partnering up with the Fat Mike Chicago Sports Show, as well as the 1252 brand, because we are one of the few Chicagoland breweries that embrace sports and sports culture. Come in for a fresh brewed beer made right here in Lockport while catching the game of your favorite team. Stay for the live music that we have booked every weekend, or just come for a cozy atmosphere to enjoy a good conversation with a friend, loved one, or complete stranger. Nick and Ivy makes you feel right at home no matter what the occasion is. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for Nick and Ivy Brewing Company. Visit our website for our up-to-date tap list, or to go shopping on our online store at nickivybrewing.com. That's NIKIVY brewing.com. Come in today for a fresh brewed beer born and raised in Lockport, Illinois.
And that was a quick word from our guys over at Nick and Ivy. If you're in the area, make sure you stop out and check out their tap list. They've got the live music going every weekend. Great atmosphere. Be sure to stop if you're out in that area.
Yes, absolutely. So many good choices. Like you said, you got the live music, great atmosphere, guaranteed a great time.
So, obviously, we talked a lot of Bulls here over the last few minutes. It was great having Dave on with us. I mean, just what a great insight that was, especially little bit more information on the players like Javonte Green, a guy that wasn't making the headlines. He was obviously part of the trade, but obviously Vucevic dominated the news yesterday as expected. I mean, we went and pulled in a star center. I would feel comfortable saying he's a star.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the one thing that does concern me with that move is his age. I mean, he's not old, but he's not young, and you've only really got a couple years here with him before he's probably in his prime right now, I think is fair to say. So you've only got a couple seasons.
Statistically, he's having his best year of his career. A lot of people are concerned about him being 30, and does that make it a short window? I mean, you don't go out and trade for a guy like that if you're not trying to win a championship in the next 4 years, anyways. So for him being in 5, 6, 7 years, I mean, you're hoping that this trade gets you in the right direction, that you're competing for championships well before then, anyways.
That is a fair point. I just think when it comes to giving up the 2 firsts, that's a hard pill for some people to swallow, no matter what talent you're bringing in. But at the end of the day, if your team is that much better because you brought this guy in, and we needed it. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. wasn't the answer in the center in the paint that we needed. He just simply wasn't.
It's a few things. We've heard AK talk about, if nothing else, his number one priority is making Chicago a destination that free agents want to go to. The players around the league say, I want to be a Bull. I want to be part of that locker room. I want to be part of that culture. I want to win. We're going to compete every night. We're going to win a lot of games. Maybe that makes somebody come here that nobody's thinking about. Maybe Kawhi opts out. The Clippers got all sorts of problems. They just traded Lou Williams and 2 future picks for Rajon Rondo. So you never know. There's a lot of guys that could opt out or, just choose not to go back to their teams this offseason. But the thing is, you get better. You compete. Those draft picks, you're probably going to pick 20th this year. And you're talking about another pick in 2023 because in the NBA, you can't trade first rounds in back-to-back years, which is the dumbest rule I ever heard. But you can't trade the back-to-back first-round pick. So you're worried about a first-round pick in 2023? Well, hopefully the moves you just made to give up that pick and the moves you make in free agency and next year going forward, you're competing for a championship or at least one of the top 2 teams in the East, and that pick's not going to matter anyways.
Yeah, I do understand your logic behind that. I would feel a whole lot better about the situation if we did have a true point guard on our roster that could distribute the ball. Obviously, we touched on Lonzo Ball earlier. Obviously, we couldn't make that happen. There's always a chance that happens in the offseason.
I think one way or another, no matter what, Lonzo Ball is a Bull next year. There's been reports that say that he wants to come to Chicago. He likes everything the Bulls have going. The Bulls clearly want him. They've been trying to trade for him, all year. They liked him when he was drafted by the Lakers. They liked him. I think AK has proven that he goes and gets his guy. I don't see the way they don't have him.
And our guy Tyler here is saying you can't trade back-to-back picks because of what the Nets did.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I get why they do it, but at the end of the day, if they're my picks, I should be able to trade my picks whenever I want. That's just like the NFL. You can only trade 3 first-round draft picks. Oh, but on draft day, I could trade 4. Well, if they're my draft picks, I should be able to trade them whenever I want.
Yeah, and then I guess transitioning a little bit, that kind of brings up a good point too, Vince. Is any player worth that many draft picks in the NFL?
Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, the next, maybe Trevor Lawrence, if he's what he's supposed to be. Football's quarterbacks. You got to have a quarterback. we've been harping on it for as long as our show's been going here. And, if the Bears are in that position because they don't have one. So, if it was to get a guy like Deshaun Watson, I'd give up 4 first-round picks. The Rams haven't picked first in like 6 years because they keep trading them. And, the Saints and different teams that are over the cap, they just find a way to keep kicking the bucket down the road, and I'll deal with it then.
That's what good GMs and good coaches do. I guess back to the NBA real quick, though. The amount of picks that Oklahoma City has over absolutely mind-blowing. I think they have 17 firsts and 17 second-round picks.
They have 37 draft picks over the next 3 drafts. Or I think it's 3 drafts or 4 drafts, something but it's 37 picks.
That's absolutely crazy. I mean, you talk about rebuilding a team from the ground up. That puts a whole new meaning behind it. But then, on the other hand, you're not going to have any veteran leadership on a team if you're going out and bringing in 16 guys in a season that are all rookies. I mean, as ridiculous as that number sounds, do you think that's the answer in today's NBA, or is that too much of a good thing?
At some point it becomes just picks. 17 second-round draft picks. What are you going to get with 17 second-round draft picks? Teams are lucky to hit on 1 second-round draft pick, let alone 3 and 4 and 5 in certain drafts. You know what? Obviously, the plan will be to move picks. I think Oklahoma City, they gave it their best. I think they rode it out as long as they could till the wheels fell off. And they're going to go back to being a small market team that doesn't pay anybody. And I don't think they're ever going to compete again. Because who's going to want to go there? If you're a legitimate star in the NBA, is that where you want to go? Or you're like, well, I could go play with myself in Oklahoma City. Oh, LA's calling. I can go play there with like 8 other guys that are great.
You do bring up a good point, and I think that moving forward, they are going to return to being they've always been somewhat a smaller market team. They did attract some good players here in years past, but all those guys have moved on. And
right.
You talk with the Bulls and them wanting to develop that destination for free agents and get people to come on. It's got to be difficult to got our guy Mike in the chat here trying to be funny. It's going to be difficult to make a destination like Chicago really appealing without that second piece. And thankfully, I think we just did it.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing more, you've gotten the second piece, and David spoke on it too. People around the league, they speak really highly of this kid, Patrick Williams. Hopefully he grows into that third spot. If they're able to go get Alonzo Ball, Alonzo's not a superstar, but he's a guy, he's going to go out, he's going to play good defense, he's going to hit a bunch of threes for you, and he's a pure playmaker. He's looking to set up his teammates before himself. And right now the Bulls don't have that. We have our little chat that we watch, we talk, and sometimes we're watching games. And how many games have we seen the Bulls? They should have closed out games, and instead they're letting teams back in it. And now next thing we know, they're losing because they don't have anybody control the ball. Even Zach's great. Zach's one of the best players in the NBA, especially this year. But how many times have we seen him in late in the game have the ball and give it up? He either forces a shot or tries to make a pass that he has no business making. Hopefully we don't see as much of that. You can kind of hide the point guard thing because Zach can play pick and pop with Vucevic. They're going to roll the pick and roll. They're going to play off that. They'll play really well together. So you can hide it. AK, they asked about the point guard thing, and he said, you know what? Point guard is whoever brings the ball up the court. LeBron James has made a career of it. He's a small forward, but he brings the ball up the court. All of a sudden, he's a point guard. Ben Simmons has been a small forward. Now he's bringing the ball up. He's a point guard. Jokic, who, let me just stand on my soapbox and say he should be the MVP. It shouldn't have taken injuries to other guys for him to be the MVP, but I think he's the MVP of the NBA. But you see a guy like him, he brings the ball up the court. And then you look at a team like Milwaukee, who everybody in the NBA would love to have Giannis on their team. Well, you see Milwaukee doesn't have that point guard to handle the ball in late games and in the playoffs. And it's exposed Giannis for his flaws and where his limits are. And that's what made them go make that trade for Drew Holiday in the offseason. I just think that every team, you got to have that guy that when nothing else, they can handle the ball.
No, I think you're right 100%. And that's that's the one step that the Bulls have to make here in the offseason or in the draft is realistically going after a guy that's able to distribute definitively. Our guy Tyler here in the chat saying, as of today, Jokic is plus 500 for the MVP. Again,
I'm pretty sure that's a bet Tyler made a long time ago before this season started at plus 500 for the MVP.
And it's a bet I would take. I would have taken it a couple months ago, honestly. I think Jokic is much better than I'm sorry. Jokic is now at minus 110. So now he's a lock.
Well, yeah, because everybody got hurt.
But it shouldn't have taken everybody getting hurt. And I think
I couldn't agree more.
I think that's a part of being in a market like Denver is he doesn't get the attention as much on the national stage as some of these other guys do.
Right. And, Denver hasn't had the year that they thought they were going to have. And, that's part of the reason they went out and got a guy like Aaron Gordon, and it cost them some big pieces that they decided, getting that front court help was the most important. And, it gives them, you have a front court of Jokic and Aaron Gordon, and now Michael Porter Jr. can slide back to small forward instead of power forward. I just think that what he does on the floor, from shooting to defense to rebounds to blocks to steals, passes, I mean, he's just I think 8.9 or 9.1 assists he's averaging. Other than that, he's averaging a triple-double as a center. I mean, that's, but it is what it is. The guys that, the LeBrons and the Hardens and everybody like that always run away with the MVP votes.
Our guy Alan here in the chat saying every time he thinks about betting on a guy, they get hurt.
It's been dominoes. You look at the MVP and it was Embiid hurt. Then it was, okay, now it's LeBron's MVP because Embiid got hurt, LeBron gets hurt. Then it's, okay, James Harden. Now James Harden got hurt. He didn't play yesterday. So there's just, we'll see if Harden comes back and he's not out too long, he could run away with it. Will they give it to a center? I don't know. Especially Jokic, some of those guys, they just look at certain names, and those names, it's like, it's got to be one of the popular names and one of the hot names for it to be MVP. So we'll see.
Yeah, our guy Tyler here saying don't sleep on James Harden for MVP this year. I wouldn't give James Harden the MVP just because of the situation that I've said it before on this network. The situation, the way he got himself to Brooklyn, I don't agree with, and I don't think fans can forget that so easily.
No, I just that the whole thing was wrong, and I'm all for players trying to better their situations and not wanting to be somewhere. He had been there a long time. Teams move on from players all the time, so why shouldn't players? But I just think there's a certain way to do it. Especially all the stories that came out after where you heard all the power they had given him. Like you said, we've talked about it on this show, letting James Harden decide who gets fired and who stays with the team and different things. I mean, he's played great since he's been with the Nets, but I mean, at the end of the day, at some point, KD's going to come back. At some point, Kyrie's going to come back. I mean, you're playing on a team that your starting five has James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant on it, not to mention a very great knockdown shooter in Joe Harris that just gets to stand at the 3-point line and hit threes. It's really easy to get assists. Talking about how he gets 15 assists a game. Well, it's really easy when you drive the basket and kick it to a wide open Joe Harris and he knocks down a three. I mean,
absolutely.
I always thought that about Russell Westbrook too. Russell Westbrook has padded stats. How many times did we see in Washington Oklahoma City where ball would go up and it'd be a rebound and the two centers or the center and the forward, they'd back up and they'd let Russ grab the rebound. That's not a real triple-double. That's not like it used to be. It's not like when David Robinson had a quadruple-double with 10 blocks. It's not that. It's just guys letting him do what he wants because there's nobody out there. Again, Oklahoma City, after everybody left, there was nobody there. It was just Russ.
Right.
So what were they going to do? Of course Russ is going to dictate.
Of course. I mean, switching gears here a little bit before we close the show out, you want to touch on some baseball real quick, Vince? I know we did
touch on baseball.
We did talk about Eloy earlier a little bit. I want to know, as a Cubs fan here, what are your thoughts on Arrieta. How do you think that he's going to perform this year, and do you like what we've seen out of him so far?
I mean, everyone's got to love what they've seen out of him so far. As far as this season, every night before he pitches, thank God he's a starter, so we know what days he's going to start. I go to bed and I pray to the Lord above that the next day this continues and young Jake Arrieta shows up in old Jake Arrieta's body and he keeps throwing the hell out of the ball.
2015 form, huh?
Yeah, Cy Young form, no fastball anymore. His fastball, I think they said, is down to 91. He's not throwing it by anymore, but he's making people miss. You know, people have made careers out of it. And I think the thing going for him is when he came here and he adjusted the way he approached hitters, he said, I'm going to do it my way. Well, if he's able to then reimagine himself, redesign himself, whatever word you want to use, to now with a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, be able to locate and make miss bats and not just try to throw it past somebody. Actually, you know, the skill of pitching, not just a flamethrower. Hopefully he keeps it going. And, you know, a guy like that, if you get a pitcher that you say, okay, well, we got a 4 or a 5 here, and he pitches like a 1 or a 2 in a division that isn't anybody going to run away with the Central, he could easily help them make the playoffs or be something that they were not expecting.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I think it's only positive from here, especially with the money they paid him. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to see what Jake brings to the table. I've always loved him. I was sad to see him go, and I'm happy to see him back. So,
absolutely. You know, we had a question come through the chat from our guy Alan here at 1252. He wants to know, why does the league constantly have opening day for the Cubs at home? Let it get warmer out before you bring everybody out for opening day. Alan, that's half the fun. Half the people at Wrigley Field aren't there to watch the game anyways. They're there to drink beer and be in the bleachers and see how, you know, have a good time, a party in the rooftops and everything else. They're not there for the game. So that's why they do it, because it's a sellout every year. Well, it was another great show. We're going to thank our guests. We had Steve Edwards, from former Chicago Bear, and David Schuster, the Chicago legendary sports reporter, on with us. We want to thank our sponsors, John Darren Team and Nick and Ivy. And, you know, another great show. We appreciate everybody coming out and watching and having fun with us. And we can't wait to do it again next Friday. So for my co-host, Andrew Tarbill, this is Turtle. Peace out, y'all.